What's up, y'all, and welcome back to AAB TV, also known as Authentically RGB TV. And we're back for another Abbott Elementary Season 2 episode review. So let's get into the video. So the video opens up with Barb and Melissa. For whatever reason, they're outside in the garden, um, and they find a bone that they believe is human. So they freak out. But it turns out that the janitor, Mr. Johnson, played some type of little prank on them. But it comes to find out when he realizes, like, hey, this is not the bone from the skeleton. He's like, hold on now, and throws it. And then we go to see that the real culprit of this prank was Greg. And y'all remember last season when Barbara first got serious about this garden, he played it to the left, but in reality, he was like the main one that was making sure everything was growing, and he like took it super serious. And he basically had this big old bone that they didn't know was actually a beef rib or something like that. He said, um, because he wanted them to basically stay out of his garden. And so once all of that is done, we see that the teachers around the school are getting ready to go to some development meeting to discuss like mid-semester goals and catch up on like district stuff that that all teachers have to deal with. And one of the teachers, what y'all, I cannot remember his name, but all I know is that he was an eighth grade science teacher. So we're gonna call him Mr. Science. He brings up this science project that his class is going to do called the egg drop, and that sparks Janine's interest, of course, and everybody's just like, oh my gosh, here we go. And so she takes it upon herself to invite her second graders and Melissa's second and third grade class to participate. So basically, it's like you have these eggs, and it's like a physics activity, basically, like with gravity and all that thing, trying to figure out um, what you can build to support the egg so that when you drop it from whatever height you decide that to see if it's going to break or if it's going to stay the same. And of course, the science teacher was not really too happy about it, but he just decided, I mean, it is what it is. She just invites herself to everything anyway. He kind of told her, it's science, like it's not really age appropriate, but you do what you're gonna do. And took it from there. So while all that's going on, kids are leaving or getting picked up. I believe they're coming to school actually, and Barbara encounters a parent who has some like not so appropriate, not so nice tattoos going on, and it's like huge, just like big as day. And she finds herself offensive because of the things, I'm saying, the word that is tatted on this student's mom. And so she approached her, throughout the day. She approached her because she was like, these are things that kids don't need to see. And if it's offensive to me, it's going to also be offensive to the other teachers or faculty and staff. And the kids are like wondering like what these words are spelling, because not only does she have a tattoo of an obscene word, she has clothing that has things on it that are not appropriate for, I'm saying, elementary and middle school kids or whatever. And so she's just like, she can't believe that somebody would actually mark their body up like that, and she never speaks on that, and she can never say the word, the uh, like uppity hoity-toity type of people. But she decides like, she took it upon herself, like she's gonna approach this parent and let her know how she feels about it. So after all of that goes on, here comes the, I guess you can call it an assembly or just like the science experiment event. So we have the eighth grade class, we have Melissa's second and third grade class, and we have Janine's second grade class. They're in the auditorium, and they have the huge ladder, and everybody's sitting down on the ground. The teachers go up, and one by one, they're dropping everyone's egg to see if it's gonna break or if it's gonna stay whole. Like I said, the eighth grade class did well. Melissa's class did well. She climbed to the top and just threw them all down out of the basket, and surprisingly, like none of them broke. So it's our girl Janine's turn to go up the ladder. And y'all remember last season that we learned that she's afraid of heights because she had to change a light bulb, or she took it upon herself to change a light bulb, and she climbed on a ladder that was not near as tall as the one that they had for this experiment. And she kind of froze, and she didn't want to go up any higher, she didn't want to go down. So this go around, she has this big old basket full of her kids projects, and she's like trying to be positive, but you could tell like she's afraid. Again, she's afraid of heights. And so she goes up, she drops him down, and y'all, her class was not so lucky. Every single one of those eggs just dropped. And there was a student who claimed that his egg that he tried to build like the support around was his best friend, and it broke, and the little boy just couldn't take it. He just couldn't take it. It was so funny. Um but yeah, so her class was not so lucky. Every single one of their eggs broke, and she was pretty bummed about it. Her class was bummed about it. She tried to give them these gold medals and to make them feel better because at least they tried, and try to keep them super positive as always. But they really weren't having it, and they were very upset about it. So once we come back from commercial, Janine walks into the teacher's lounge, and she's upset because she learned how Melissa basically none of those eggs in her class broke. And pretty much she cheated, and she was upset about it. So then in comes everybody else, and Greg is telling her that failing is a part of the scientific method, and that he would help her understand like the physics behind the egg drop experiment because he loves science. And she just kept on trying to be this like, no, it's gonna like have this kind of like I don't want my kids to fail. I don't want them to feel bad. I got to keep them positive, even if um we don't see it really happening. At least they tried. You know how Janine is. And so he's just like that's not gonna work. And he even mentions, Amber, I guess, from a couple episodes ago. They're talking still. So she canceled on him. And so he could, like I said before, he could help her to understand the physics and all the things behind this egg drop experiment after school. So she took him up on that. And while talking to Greg, he could see that it was more to it than just them not being successful in this egg drop experiment. And he's basically like what's really going on. And she just lets him know like she's upset because she can usually do like this, like maybe she might fail, but she'll like positive mindset her way through things to avoid failing. And she doesn't want her kids to feel like failures. And he gives her a pep talk, and it turns out she's ready to prove to herself and her students that they can be successful. And she figures out a way to to get the science teacher from the eighth grade. She figures out a way to get his attention in order for him to come to her classroom to basically proposition him to another egg drop event. But he declines because he's like, I got more important stuff to do. Like, you want to do it, go right ahead. But I got eighth graders to worry about, and I don't have time for you and your second graders. And lets her know, like, basically she can do it on her own. And she just like, you know what, just I'll do it. And but before all of this happened, Barb takes it upon herself to approach this parent again because she feels that as a older, more kept Christian woman, like she can basically talk to her and give her pamphlets and all these things to help guide her to have a better way to represent herself. But we soon see that the parent wasn't having it. And it all boiled down to just Barb assuming certain things about this parent that were not true. And although Barbara's intent was to make it make the situation better, she ended up making the situation worse. And I don't I don't fault the parent for being upset, because if somebody came up to me without knowing anything about me, about my upbringing, about anything that had to do with me, and they just assume certain things and come to me with those, I guess you could call stereotypes, I would be upset too. And like she said, like, you don't know me. Like, and like, you haven't even really sat down and talked to me. Yes, my daughter may be in your class, but you don't know nothing about me. So don't come to me basically sideways. And she just left Barbara shook. And that was that. So then Janine has another conversation with Greg throughout the week about this dang on egg drop thing again. She just can't let it go. And they're talking about science and how, what I'm saying, like, he just feels that she, even though like she wanted them to learn certain things about science, to try to make it age appropriate, and to tell them the truth about science. Like, there's gonna be times where you fail, there's gonna be times where you're successful, but that's all a part of, like you said before, the scientific method. And instead of having this like super positive, believe it and it'll happen type of attitude towards their work all the time, because you don't want them to be upset, or you don't want them to feel like failures. Like, it can, because doing that, it can set people up to expect things that will not come true. And to be a teacher is about being honest and letting them know, like, sometimes things will work out and sometimes things won't. So that kind of sparked a different idea in her head, and she realized, yes, I do need to make it more age appropriate, something, bring in science to where we can my kids can understand it. And so she decided to have not an egg drop but an egg lift, because her kids love, as little kids always do, they love balloons. And it was like a cool experiment to see not what would happen when you drop them, but how many, I guess, how many balloons it would take um for the egg in the little seat with the balloons to lift up, and have the estimates and the hypothesis, and what they think is going to happen versus what actually happened. So they were really enjoying it. They were in the gym, and again, she figured out a way to kind of like get the eighth grade science teacher to come in, because she stole his helium machine, and because she wanted him and Greg, because he was there to see, like, I figured it out. I as always, she learns her lessons. And but this particular time, she learned a lesson, and everything was turning out good, until the balloons started flying up. And all of a sudden everybody starts looking up, and they're like, and we see this big fan in the ceiling, and it starts popping out of the balloon. So every single little balloon experiment that she had going on fell to the ground, and the eggs broke again. And the poor little student, who really didn't have friends and thought that the egg was his friend, yet again, another one, just broke into all to pieces, and he was upset again. So I mean, she won, but then again, she was kind of like, my bad. um and then we see that Barb, at the end of the day, her student's mom comes in again, and she kind of gives Barb like the cold shoulder, like, I don't really want you talking to me, lady. Like, hello, goodbye. But Barb apologizes to the parent for judging her, and she realized that, all along she questioned her character based off of what she wore, what she looked like on the outside, but that doesn't always depict what somebody has going on the inside. And again, that's something that no person should ever really do, but we know that it happens more than it doesn't. And but all of that, like, her wanting to apologize and rethinking kind of how she approached the lady, was coming off the back of a conversation that she had with Ava in the teachers lounge because she was looking at this person's like clothing line and seeing all the stuff she had on there. And Ava was just basically like, has she given you any reason to assume that she's a bad parent? Like, does her daughter seem like she's in danger? And Barb was like, no. And then Ava was like, how is her grades? Does she turn in her work? And she's like, yeah. And so she's just like basically told her, like, so what you need to ask yourself, what makes you think that something's wrong with this parent? Like, she's not even giving you any type of sign or any type of, whatever to make you feel like she's not doing what she needs to be doing or that she's not a good person. So you need to basically check yourself. And I was like, okay, Ava, look at Ava giving her the real deal. So like I said, that sparked a little light bulb to go off in Barb's head. And she just basically decided to reconcile with the parent. They had a little conversation, and we can assume that they'll have like a better relationship or better conversations from here on out. Be more cordial moving forward. And I know that it caused Barb to basically kind of look at herself and probably process some of the stereotypes or assumptions that she may think about other people because, like I said, they don't look like her or act like her. And when we do that, we end up missing out on some good people because of what they present on the outside. That's why it's best to never judge a book by its cover, and to always give people a chance to show themselves, to prove who they are. And we can learn a lot about people that are different from us if we just decide to open up. And towards the end, I forgot to mention that basically, like throughout this entire episode, Jacob was just kept telling all the teachers that he knew that the eighth grade science teacher did not like him for whatever reason, and he was passive aggressive, and he was like this nice nasty person. But in everyone's face, he would always ask Jacob, like, how you doing, how's your day going, what are you planning on do after work? And Jacob, he would answer the question, but it was kind of like he was still kind of standoffish towards him, and just was like, oh, every time he walked away, like, he gets on my nerves. Like, he doesn't mean those things. He's mean. He's mean. And everybody except Ava was just like, I think you tripping, basically. But at the end of the episode, we realized that Mr. Science Teacher really definitely hates Jacob and plans on continuing to be the passive aggressive, nice, nasty colleague. And Jacob's just gonna have to keep on dealing with it and just getting his feathers ruffled every time they come in each other's space. But pretty much that was the entire episode. Basically, don't be afraid to fail. Do not assume and judge a book by its cover, and get to know people. And be positive, but also be honest, and know that even if you do fail, that doesn't mean that you won't have any other way to be successful, or that you can't figure out some things and become successful in your own way. So I hope you guys enjoyed this quick little recap, and I will see you guys on the next one next week. Peace.